Finally. The tension is palpable. The jury leans forward, waiting for the final words that will guide their decision. Judge Whitman looks toward the prosecution. Judge Whitman. Ms. Myers, you may proceed with your closing statement. Rachel Myers rises, buttoning her jacket. She walks with quiet determination to the jury box. Rachel Myers. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard the evidence. You have seen Emma Collins take this stand, a young woman with no reason to lie, no motive to destroy her own peace, and you have seen her courage. She pauses, meeting each juror's gaze. Rachel Myers, CONT'd. You also heard from the defendant. A man who told you bruises and torn clothing were the result of passion. A man whose story changed when the facts didn't fit. A man who expects his privilege to protect him from the truth. She steps closer, voice sharpening with conviction. Rachel Myers, CONT'd. This case is not about doubt. It is about accountability. It is about the courage of one young woman against the silence of power. Emma Collins came here today not because she wanted to, but because she had to. Because justice demanded it. Rachel glances back at David, then Emma, their faces raw with emotion. Rachel Myers, CONT'd. When you go to deliberate, I ask you to remember her words. Her tears. Her strength. And I ask you to deliver justice. Not just for Emma, but for every victim who dares to speak when silence would be easier. She takes a breath, steady but burning with passion. Rachel Myers, CONT'd. Find him guilty. Because he is guilty. Rachel returns to her seat. The courtroom is still. The judge nods to Mark Benson. Mark rises smoothly, every step calculated. He straightens his tie and faces the jury with practiced calm. Mark Benson. Ladies and gentlemen, the prosecution has given you a powerful story. But stories are not evidence. Emotion is not proof. He gestures toward Kyle, who sits stiff and pale. Mark Benson, CONT'd. Kyle Mercer's life hangs in the balance. And the law demands more than feelings. It demands proof beyond a reasonable doubt. He leans closer to the jury, lowering his voice like a confidant. Mark Benson, CONT'd. And what did we see? Inconsistencies in Emma's testimony. Confusion about the location. No witnesses. No DNA tying Kyle to this alleged crime. Only bruises, which could come from anywhere. David shakes his head, whispering furiously under his breath. Emma stares at the floor, tears slipping down her cheeks. Mark Benson, CONT'd. You may feel sympathy for Emma. Who wouldn't? But sympathy cannot convict. If there is doubt, any doubt, then the law is clear. You must find Kyle Mercer not guilty. He lets the words hang in the air, then sits, adjusting his cufflinks as though the verdict is already his. Judge Whitman turns to the jury. Judge Whitman. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have heard all testimony and closing arguments. You will now retire to deliberate. The bailiff rises as the jury files out, the weight of their decision heavy in every step. Scene 10. Afternoon. The room is tense, filled with hushed whispers. David sits rigid beside Rachel, his hand gripping Emma's tightly. She's pale, trembling, but resolute. Across the aisle, Kyle Mercer sits with his attorney, his leg bouncing nervously beneath the table. The bailiff enters. Bailiff. All rise for the jury. Everyone stands. The 12 jurors file back into the courtroom, solemn, their faces unreadable. David stares at them, searching desperately for a sign. The judge nods. Judge Whitman. Madam Foreperson, has the jury reached a verdict? The jury foreperson, a middle-aged woman with a firm expression, rises, holding the verdict slip. Jury foreperson. We have, Your Honor. The bailiff takes the paper, handing it to Judge Whitman. The judge unfolds it, scans it, then passes it back. Judge Whitman. Please read the verdict. The foreperson clears her throat, voice steady. Jury foreperson. In the matter of the State versus Kyle Mercer, on the charge of sexual assault, we, the jury, find the defendant. The courtroom holds its breath. David's grip on Emma's hand tightens. Kyle sits frozen, lips pressed together. Jury foreperson, CONT'd. A guilty. A gasp ripples through the gallery. Emma covers her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. David exhales sharply, overcome with emotion. He pulls her into his arms, holding her as if shielding her from the world. Kyle's face drains of color. Mark Benson slams his briefcase shut, jaw clenched in frustration. Judge Whitman's gavel strikes. Judge Whitman. Order. Order in the court. The chaos subsides into hushed murmurs. David kisses the top of Emma's head, whispering into her hair. David. Softly. It's over. It's finally over. Rachel Myers looks back at them, her eyes wet but proud. Justice, at last, has been served. Scene 11. Evening. The sun is low, painting the courthouse in golden light. Crowds gather outside, reporters, onlookers, flashes of cameras. The heavy doors swing open. David emerges first, his arm protectively around Emma. She leans into him, still fragile but walking with her head held higher than before. Rachel Myers follows behind, dignified, keeping her distance from the press. Reporters shout questions. Reporter number 1. David, how do you feel about the verdict? Reporter number 2. Emma, what do you want to say to other victims? David shields Emma with his arm, gently guiding her through the chaos. He doesn't stop for the cameras. They descend the courthouse steps slowly. Emma looks up at her father. Emma. Quietly. Dad, it's really over, isn't it? David stops on the steps. He looks down at her, tears in his eyes, his voice trembling but strong. David. It'll never be over, sweetheart. But today we got justice. Emma nods, fighting back emotion. David pulls her into a firm embrace, holding her as the world watches. For a moment, nothing else matters. The camera pulls back, father and daughter silhouetted against the fading sun, walking into an uncertain future, scarred but unbroken. Fade out. The end.